I've been following this Instagram account for a while now called old.newyorkcity, and they're always sharing photos of New York City from, date ranges between like the 1920s and maybe the 1940s or 50s. And there's some really interesting stuff in there. And I picked out some that I thought were quite compelling photos, but also just historically interesting photos. So we're going to look at them and break them down and see what we can learn. Okay, first I want to look at this photo, and I also want to mention that it was not as easy to shoot back then as it is now. They weren't running around with little Fuji films with 3,000 photos on them, so that makes these photos extra impressive. But in this photo we have an amazing, well, first off, let me talk about the sort of the description of the photo. I think that's important for these particular ones. 1946, Andres Feininger's photo down 42nd Street using a 40-inch telephoto lens 2 miles away in New Jersey. This photo has an amazing sense of atmosphere to it, and that atmosphere and all the smokiness creates an amazing sense of depth, and I quite enjoy that about this. Also, you can see that this very tall building on the top left here, which might be the Chrysler Building, perhaps? I'm not sure. It's being chopped off. Sometimes you want to chop off buildings, sometimes you don't. One of the things that I enjoy about chopping off the top of tall things and buildings, and I think it's used well here, is that it gives the city a sense of hugeness. Also, the way that they're chopped off on the left and right, it gives you this feeling that the city just goes on to the left and the right. New York City is quite huge, and it was still quite huge back in 1946. All of this chopping off of things on the edges of the frames is a great way to make something feel expansive. It feels like the city is overflowing, much like my love for cold brew. Pure joy in liquid form. I absolutely love this photo. A high-resolution version of it could hang on my wall, even though this is a window curtain. Okay, next we have this fantastic photo. This fantastic photo taken in 1947 on the Williamsburg Bridge. I quite enjoy this photo as well. I like the angle. I'm curious how the person was able to obtain this angle. But a lot of these photos have some really lean and tense framing. And when I say tense, I don't necessarily mean that in a bad way. And I'll explain that more as I go, but you can see, for example, here that this building is just almost touching the top of the frame. If I were to shoot this photo, I would pull back just a hair more and have a bit more breathing room up there. But the photos that we're gonna look at today is full of this type of tense framing. And I think it adds some drama to the photo a lot of times. I don't think it's always a bad thing. It is nice to see New York City with only 4 cars on the road. I would love to have that type of shooting environment because I often find cars, especially the cars of nowadays, to be quite cluttersome. That is now an official word. And there aren't a bunch of street signs and traffic cones and general clutter. It would have been so fun to shoot in this time. So here we have a rather interesting curvy street lamp that's framing this car quite nicely. And I also like how the road barrier on the right is aligned with the side of the frame. It's a well-composed photo. And once again, we have this hazy atmosphere, which I think adds a lot. And this car acts as a clear subject. It's, we have a single car and then a group of 3 other cars. And this car pushes ahead of them, it's separated from them visually, and it's framed up by this lamppost. So it organizes the photo very nicely. This is beautiful. 1910 Penn Station platform level. And look at how beautiful this station is. This would be so fun to shoot in. In 1910, this was over 100 years ago. This was before both world wars. This is a long time ago. Now I love how we have a group of 3 people here. This is a photography guideline, of course, and you can see how the people are established as a clear subject in this photo just by being people. We have an inherent visual intrigue about us. They grab our eye, and they're also in the center, which center weights the frame. Or we could put them on the left or the right, but the way that this photo is constructed makes it feel very organized. This is also a great example of how more people in a scene, as you would often find in a train station, in a modern day train station in New York City, is not always better. There's something so wonderful about the fact that there's just these 3 people in this giant, beautiful train station. If you had 319 other people wandering around fighting for the attention in the frame, it would be a different photo. Now you could organize the photo to still work and be fantastic, but it would be a very different photo than this one. Bob N1325 says, it was impressive, and I remember the big hall with high ceiling. Went there a lot as a kid in the 50s. Wow. The late great Pennsylvania Station. One of the great architectural crimes, but at least led to the creation of the Landmark Preservation Society. Oh. Wow, photos like these make my heart all fuzzy. Yeah, if I were captain of train stations in New York City, I would have done everything in my power to preserve this. 1980, shadow cast from the Brooklyn Bridge, Brooklyn side, Water Street. I'm not sure that's as much of a street. Is that cobblestone? Wow. Wow. Okay, once again, we have an extremely hazy atmosphere. I guess everything was always on fire in New York City. Beautiful photo though. Bit of a wacky composition. If I were to take this photo nowadays, I would say that it would need some work. Primarily just a couple of things poking in, right? We have this power line poking in on the left side. We got this guy going off the frame on the right side. If he was gone, that would be really nice. We could have just these well, I guess that's 4 horse carriages. Okay, we'll hack off the back one and the front one, and then the white horse in the back. You know what? Just the white horse carriage, right? Just the white horse carriage, exactly where it is, or maybe just walking through that streak of light, that beautiful streak of light that we have here. Oh man, of course the streak just adds so much to the photo. There's something about taking a focal point in the image and aligning it with some other focal point in the image. And if that were to be done here, that would have been extremely fantastic, perhaps excruciatingly fantastic. Ah, it's so fantastic. Something I enjoy about this photo is you get this sense of the immensity of 1920s New York City infrastructure, and you have this juxtaposition between this massive bridge that's shooting through town and these older, 3-4 story brick buildings and horse carriages and I guess cobblestone roads. 1934, Margaret Bourke White with her camera atop a stainless steel eagle projecting from the 61st floor of the Chrysler Building. I wanted to throw this photo in there just to ask the question, are you working hard enough for your street photography? Because come on. She's like, I know where my angle is and it's atop that eagle over there. Let us make way. My next question is, can you live inside this eagle? 1929, light streaming into the old Penn Station. Here we have some rather tense but beautiful framing. We have some perfect streaks of light coming in from these large windows. We have, of course, this beautiful old film look. You can see that this photo is exposed more closely for the light than the shadows. And I think, of course, it adds a lot to this photo. It gives it a very intense, dramatic quality. And you get these silhouetted people wandering around as well. Because of that, this photo has this intense allure to it. If only it still existed, shameful destruction of an amazing structure. Listen, New York City, the people are upset. They demand the old one back. Build it again. I want all the old pieces to be found and put back together in their proper arrangement. The people demand it. 1931, worker atop the nearly completed Empire State Building, the Chrysler Building and Daily News buildings can be seen in the distance. I do see the Chrysler Building. Is that the Daily News building? Very exciting photo. I love the centered Chrysler Building, and you have this guy with this gesture. I don't know if he's perhaps communicating something to his friends, but of course he is a nice addition, adds some human engagement to the photo. It's pretty cool that we're looking down on the Chrysler Building from the Empire State Building, which is being completed. This is historical photography. Well done, done well. Hi, my name is Dunwell. 1938, New Year's Eve celebration in Times Square. The first ball dropped in 1907 and has happened every year since, except 1942 and 1943, when there were wartime dim outs. Wow. So one of the things I noticed about this photo is very interesting is I'm pretty sure this is some motion blur of the crowds moving around, and you can see, I think maybe cars are coming through here. Yeah, and that adds, of course, a lot of action to the photo. We have this lovely old trolley that I would love to photograph today, and we have the Christmas tree centered in the middle. Something that helps the photo feel organized. And we also have this beautiful diffuse light. I did not know that they had Cinebloom filters back then. Pretty amazing. Once again, kind of crazy that this photo was taken 80 years ago, and it would have been a lot of fun to do street photography in the 20s, the 30s, and the 40s. Although I would prefer to be able to bring my current gear setup to the eras. Okay, last I wanted to show you this one. This is fun. 1930s. Photos of the 1930s movie set model, just imagine, showing the futuristic New York in the year 1980. Everything in the future remained very Art Deco. It's intriguing to look at what people thought the 1980s would look like back in the 1930s, and you can see that their current stylistic preferences for buildings leaked into the future in just maybe a bit more of like a futuristic and metal kind of way. Obviously our skylines look dramatically different than this now. And I mean, I wouldn't prefer this. This has like a utopic, dystopic kind of feel. I like what we have going on a little better. This makes me feel like there would be some lizard overlords that are keeping everything in line. I mean, not that that's much different than what we have going on right now. So it got close in some ways. I mean, if we look at the 19-lane highway we have here, that's pretty dead on, but it also looks a bit more horrifying than modern day New York City. Okay, that's it. I also want to mention that I like how Star Wars depicted the futuristic city with Coruscant, right? You have the planet that has a city wrapped around it. While a lot of movies depicting futuristic societies, even though I know it was long ago in a galaxy far, far away, they create this sort of utopic, uneasy kind of feel. Whereas Coruscant felt like this really lively, lived-in, human kind of thing, and what humans do when we decide to build massive cities. It felt very real. It felt like a place you would actually want to wander around. It's still a pretty impressive computer-generated world. I'm not sure a future city has been done as well as that. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Did you enjoy this? What stood out to you about these old photos? I would appreciate it if you liked and subscribed, if you enjoyed what you experienced here today. That would mean a lot to me. But with all that said, keep on hitting that shutter button with all the passion that index finger can generate. Don't break the camera though. Okay, love you guys, goodbye.